In this episode of OG55, I got the very stylish and dapper Mr. Theme Park Conductor rocking the Mickey shirt. He is in the house today. We're talking about Epic Universe, Harry Potter. To be more specific, we're talking about some permits being filed that hint at some Disneyland Forward stuff going on. And we're going to talk about some of the changes going on at Downtown Disney. Theme Park Conductor in the house up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. I got Mr. Theme Park Conductor with me today. We're talking Disneyland Resort. We're talking Universal Studios Orlando, but also Hollywood in regard to Universal. Conductor, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be back. We were just on last night with Mr. Webber. Again, the amazing Spider-Man protecting his little town, his little village, as I call it. But no, it's great to be back. It's always great to be on the show. It's always great to hang out with you and George. Obviously, George is in Florida enjoying himself with Slimer and a few other of his friends at Walt Disney World. So I wish him the best time. I'm sure he's having an amazing time. But
I gotta say, not to cut you off, I gotta say I'm a little jealous. They're hanging out with Drew the Disney dude out there. Do you see those pictures?
I did see those pictures. I actually saw the one just before we went live. He was sitting next to Uncle Walt. I'm like, damn, I'm jealous.
Absolutely. Conductor, if you can let everybody know where they can find you on YouTube and social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on Twitter at Theme Conductor. And you can find me at 7 p.m. on Thursday nights doing my Conductor Thursday live stream where we talk all about Universal, Disney, theme park news, HHN, just Disney rumors around the world. So definitely stay tuned. OG55, the Italiano, Mr. Webber have already been guests on the show. They're going to be future guests coming up. We do have a special guest this week, Universal High, and we're going to dive very deep down the rabbit hole with Universal Hollywood. So stay tuned for that.
You know, you're lucky, Conductor, that the Italiano isn't recording with us right now, because when you said dive very deep, that was a joke opportunity for the Italiano. But we'll keep it professional. We'll keep it professional today. You know what I'm saying? No, absolutely. Make sure you check out Mr. Conductor. Does phenomenal work. His Conductor Thursdays are awesome. He's also here on OG55 quite a bit, talking Universal and Disney with us. So make sure you support him. He is a friend here on the channel. Absolutely. And we got Mr. Theme Park Wizard here with he's the permit king over here, Mr. Wizard, right?
Absolutely. He's the GOAT of permits.
Yes, he's doing big things with the permit stuff. We got Elisa Stella on the Florida front doing the permits, and we got Wizard over here on the West Coast. Wizard here says, very interesting. 2 permits were filed last month on the parking lot where the Eastern Gateway is proposed. Right now, they are labeled as confidential, so could be nothing or could be something. Stay tuned. Okay, so here's my guess on this, Conductor. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this as well. I think it's something. If I think they're waiting to kind of move full bore into this project until after maybe D23. They can get all their announcements. Then we kind of know what we're working with here in terms of projects here for Anaheim. And then I think they're going to go full bore on the Eastern Gateway. And we've talked about a lot here on the channel, Conductor, even last night with Ebba, where they have to get that Eastern Gateway situated and built so they can start any kind of construction on Disneyland Forward. Even if they want to expand out into the bus load unload area, behind Monsters Incorporated over there at DCA, they still have to do the Eastern Gateway so they can move that bus load unload area elsewhere. You know what I'm saying? So this is something that they're gonna have to do before they really expand any of this stuff. And I think they're gonna hit the ground running with it. We'll see. I think before the end of the year, we're gonna start to see shovels in dirt, but we'll see. It's very much an unknown right now. But what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are exactly like yours. So after D23, we could see evidence either months after D23 or literally the month after D23. One thing I will say, if Disney is smart, and I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here. So if these permits are accurate, and I'm not saying they're not accurate, but they're kind of just speculation, especially since it says confidential. So we have a big picture, but not the whole pie, as I call it. Right. So if it is true and they start building the Eastern Gateway project, the parking structure, I could see halfway through or even 3/4 of the way through the project where it's not quite done yet, but it's far enough along where they can actually take one of the expansion slots, which either could be the Simba lot, it could be the Lilo and Stitch parking lot, and there's one other expansion I'm not thinking. Oh, the bus unload and load area. I think that's going to be probably one of the last expansion spots they touch, because that is heavily utilized for a lot of the guests coming in that don't drive and park at the resort. One thing I would say, though, is one of those other two parking lots, we can actually see development happen, even though the Eastern Gateway project isn't 100% complete, which would make sense. So basically, you would be at least halfway or 3/4 of the way done with the Eastern Gateway project, and you can slowly start expansion. That way that, Go ahead.
That's a great point. Sorry to cut you off, conductor. That's a great point, because if you're wrapping up or you're close to wrapping up on the parking situation, the Eastern Gateway, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to cut into the entire. Like, let's say, for example, they want to put, just hypothetical, they want to put Pandora in the Simba lot, right? You don't have to start cutting drastically into the Simba lot. What you could actually do is you can sort of do like little areas first, right? So you're not getting rid of the whole thing or even like a half of it or whatever. You're just getting rid of little portions of it, and so it's not cutting into your parking too bad, right? That's a possibility that I never really considered that,
Well, see, to touch up on your point on that, which actually even makes more sense, and this is what I'm going to call a Bricky idea. So you have to come up with a soundbite for Bricky whenever we come up with a clever idea, but this is a Bricky moment right here. So exactly what you just said. So if they take a portion of the parking lot, right, and they start building, let's say, Pandora, okay, and they still have most of the parking lot left to use as parking, but not all of it, because now they're building Pandora. They could do kind of what they did in Epcot for the longest time, just have walls everywhere, but you're having access to a land. So what I talked about with you and George, and this was months ago. I think this was the opening weekend when the Anaheim City Council finally voted to finally approve Disneyland Forward all the way through. I think it was the last vote, and we talked about it a couple days later, that as they're building the Disneyland Forward project, they could build segments of it at a time. They don't have to build all of it in one sit. They can build segments. So let's say they build Avatar, but yet they still are finishing up the Eastern Gateway project. They still have parking in that parking lot, but they have a new land to kind of expand capacity, and you can open and build new lands and kind of just stretch it out through 10, 15, 20 years. But you can make it where it seems like every year or every 2 or 3 years, we're getting a new land, new attractions, new shows, new shopping, new experiences. So it kind of keeps things, new and fresh and exciting.
Yeah, no, well said. Now, in terms of Pandora, because we're kind of dipping into this with the Eastern Gateway, and it's all connected,
Sure.
What's your, like, as we stand now, we're only really we're about week away now,
Yeah.
from the D23 Expo. We're gonna know by the end of next weekend. We're gonna know what this stuff is, But where do you thought about a week out from D23 Pandora? We've speculated about it on the channel. I've said many times my money is on the symbol lot. I just feel like James Cameron, that's where he can kind of play. It's kind of a blank canvas. But there's been rumors it might go into Hollywood. Where do you feel we're going to get this Avatar experience?
So the only spot, like you said, I think it's going to be in the symbol lot. I think if they try to squeeze it in the Hollywood backlot, even with the bus and unload and load section, I feel that Disney is going to have to cut corners. And we've talked about it before. James Cameron is not one of those guys that like to cut corners with his properties. There's no way he would allow that. He would he wouldn't allow Daddy Josh to get away with that one. There's a lot of things he's gotten away with since Bob Chapek was CEO, but doing that would be no. There's no way.
Yeah, and I feel like the Hollywoodland thing, it's not impossible, but like I just feel like with Hollywoodland, there's so many roadblocks to kind of get that done. Like you have a monorail beam, you have all this stuff, you have existing park that's there now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I feel like there's all these hurdles, right? Not to say you can't overcome these hurdles, but it's like why go in there and work around all these hurdles when you have a parking lot just over there, with acre after acre, and you could just put it there. It makes more sense to me. Maybe it will go into Hollywoodland and whatever they present to us will make sense. But I'm really banking on a symbol lot right now. My only question really though is how they're going to tie this into the park that's about California. It's kind of a weird fit, you know what I'm saying? Like for Avatar, I mean, and like historically, like if anyone, you've been watching the channel for a while, a lot of fans get so nitpicky, Conductor, with the California theme. It's like, if it's not like an exact duplicate of what you find in the state, people get like all upset. I'm not even like that. I'm loosey-goosey with this stuff. Like Cars Land, okay, Route 66, car culture, good enough for me. California, that's basically enough California for me, right? Even like San Francisco, right? There's no real city out here in California called San Francisco, but there's enough San Francisco kind of inspiration in that product or land or whatever where it works for me. So I'm fine with it. I'm pretty loose about this stuff. I'm not like super strict on this theme stuff, right? Like you can have California and put in some imagination. I think that's actually pretty important because I've said before, when you try to duplicate the state of California, you're always going to come up short, right? When you go the realistic route, because you're never going to build something that's going to like match like the real Pacific Ocean and stuff like that. So you might as well go the more imaginative, like Disney kind of route for that theme. I think it's smart. But with all that said and done, when it comes to Avatar though, I don't really know how you tie that in unless you have like a kind of like a California Space Center kind of thing. And then you go from there and it transports you to Pandora and you come back. Something like that maybe could work. Will Disney go through all that trouble to sort of tie it into California? I don't know. But here's the thing too, Conductor. I want to get your opinion on this. If they put it in Hollywoodland, as it's rumored, if they put it in Hollywoodland, there's less finagling with the theming stuff because it's Hollywood. So it kind of justifies its existence too, right?
True. But from what we see from the concept art, it looks too grand to put it in that spot.
Yeah,
now,
I agree.
We've talked before about maybe Zootopia fitting in there because you got, like you said, the monorail station, and Zootopia is kind of it would fit that a lot better. And putting Avatar into the symbol lot would be absolutely amazing. Now, tying back to the Eastern Gateway project, I think, and I hate to even say this, but I think they're going to build the Eastern Gateway project first before they build Pandora. And personally, if I was Daddy Josh or I was head of Imagineering or, whatever it might be, I would take my route and say, okay, well, build the Eastern Gateway project at least halfway, if not 3/4 of the way through, then start on Pandora and put in the Symbolot. But what I think is going to happen, like I said, they're going to want to build the Eastern Gateway project first. Then they're going to start Pandora, and that might be another 3 years from now. So how do you justify that? Well, this is how you justify it. Unfortunately, people want Pandora, obviously, but people have also been talking about the Avengers e-ticket. Okay, so there's already a dedicated spot behind the Avengers Campus building for that Avengers e-ticket. Then it's come up once again, and we've all talked about it. All the YouTubers on YouTube have all talked about it in the last couple months, that the Tomorrowland remodel has come back on the table. So could we see the Avengers e-ticket be built? Could we see the Tomorrowland remodel done with a possible, and again, rumored, not confirmed, people mover coming back just to justify until they can complete the Eastern Gateway project and start on Pandora? What do you think about that?
I think that's very, very plausible. I mean, when you're talking about DCA, right? I think your timeline is actually pretty accurate. I think from what I'm hearing, the Avengers e-ticket, despite what a lot of fans are saying, like a lot of fans think it's dead. It's not dead. From what I'm hearing from sources, it's actually really far along in the pipeline, right? It's further along than fans think. So I think we're definitely going to hear about that at the expo and stuff, But here's the thing: I think we'll get that first, because you're right. That's behind Mission Breakout, you know what I'm saying? And like that land is kind of out of the way. They can start on that now. You don't need the Eastern Gateway to do that project. You build that now. It takes about maybe 3 years for that to happen. While you're doing that, though, you start on the Eastern Gateway. The Eastern Gateway is going to take you about 2 or 3 years to do as well. Yeah. If we're going on the timeline of the Pixar PAL parking structure, is about 2 or 3 years, I believe, roughly. So you kind of build them congruently, right? You build the Eastern Gateway, you build the Avengers e-ticket. So by the time the Avengers e-ticket is open, Eastern Gateway is done. So now you free up that space, right? You free up that space, and now you can put Pandora, whether it's in the Symbolot, whether they decide to put it in Hollywood, wherever they put it. I think it's going in Symbolot though, but I could be completely wrong. But that makes sense. So in 3 years from now, you'll have the Eastern Gateway done, and you'll have the Avengers ride done. Then you can start talking Pandora and go from there. So I think your timeline is pretty accurate there. And the Tomorrowland thing, to touch upon that for a little bit, Conductor, is that's back on the table. We've heard our friend Mondo talk about that from Five Fires, and Frederick Chambers on X, really good guy. He's a reliable source. A very modest kind of Tomorrowland, kind of like freshening up. That would kind of get Disneyland sort of a little bit of love in the meantime as well. So it's very possible, man. I wouldn't bank against that. That's a solid prediction. So we'll see.
Yeah. But the way I see it, it's more than plausible at this point, because we've talked about it on your channel before. The People Mover, according to your source, the People Mover tracks, even though it was a couple years ago, they are not as in bad of shape as people are led to believe. So trying to retrofit them and bring the People Mover back online is not impossible. It's the same thing with the Avengers e-ticket. If the sources that you talk to are saying, no, it's farther along than people think, and people are thinking it's dead. So if you have the Tomorrowland remodel with the People Mover possibly coming back, so that's a ride coming out of the retirement and being retrofitted to be updated. So that's an extra ride that hasn't existed since the late 90s. Then you got the Avengers e-ticket. On top of that, you're building the Eastern Gateway. You kind of kill 3 birds with one stone, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. So we'll see. Even if we don't get a People Mover, and they just do a Tomorrowland kind of refresh, beautification, aesthetics project.
Yeah.
I think that's solid. I think that's still solid. I think that's a good thing to do kind of while we're waiting for this Eastern Gateway to come up online. And then you also have that Avengers ticket. So I think that's kind of like what we're looking at here. And then Pandora will start in like 3, maybe 4 years or so when Avengers is open and Eastern Gateway is ready to go. And then they can put Pandora wherever they're planning on putting it. So it's interesting stuff. But that's not the only thing going on at the resort. We got a lot of movement out here in California. It's pretty exciting. This is from Disney Scoop Guy. He says, and I'll play the video, but it says, unfortunately, we have discovered which fountain is being removed from downtown Disney at the Disneyland Resort. And it's the House of Blues fountain. My second favorite downtown Disney fountain. I saw a guy use the water from this fountain less than a month ago to style his hair. Gross. That wasn't me, by the way. That wasn't me. No, I don't do that kind of thing. But it was seriously one of the prettier fountains in downtown Disney, and I'm gonna miss it. And here's the video he has. But this is what the fountain used to look like. I think it's gone now. I think they've already bulldozed it. But it was right in front of Tortilla Joe's. So it's interesting, right? I mean, look, here's my thing with this, conductor. I get that people are upset they're removing a fountain. I'm upset they're removing a fountain. I like fountains. I like having like water features in these spaces. I wish they would replace it with another water feature. At the same time, I also understand why they're getting rid of it. If you look at this fountain, which kind of looks like a vagina, let's be honest. Like remember the Epcot planner? Everyone was like, "Oh my god, that looks like a vagina." Oh my god, what does this look like? You know what I'm saying? What does this look like? Right?
Yeah, the West Coast version of that.
It's a West Coast vagina. Exactly. No, in all seriousness, though, aesthetically, it's very dated. This was when downtown Disney was sort of going with that garden motif. You know what I'm saying? They're no longer really doing that. They're going for a much more kind of minimalist. Even like mid-century kind of look. So it makes sense to get rid of it. It doesn't fit the style of downtown Disney anymore. But I wish they would add another fountain somewhere in downtown Disney to kind of offset the loss. Here's the thing, though. And you mentioned it on the show last night with Ebba. There's rumors they're going to bulldoze Tortilla Joe's. Okay, and now if they bulldoze that building and they're bulldozing this fountain, that leaves a lot of room. I mean, they could put quite a bit here, right?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. So since I said that last night on the video, I've been thinking about it really, really, really hard. And my thinking is you're absolutely right. They, because if they're going to have, and we've all seen it. We saw with the AMC, the big giant bulldozers and construction equipment, they need to rip some of these buildings down because they even had a hell of a time ripping down the AMC. I was there several times when they were kind of, yanking on some of the ironwork for AMC, and it was a pain in the ass. So I can only imagine what Tortilla Joe's is. But from what I'm hearing, by demoing this building to the ground, getting rid of this fountain, they're going to have I want to say 3 different restaurants in this spot.
Okay, that's smart. That's really smart. And like you said, the AMC thing was a brilliant move. One of the things that used to bother me with downtown Disney is that it was a hallway, basically. Yeah. Like, our buddy Haybricky, he calls it Avengers Hallway. Yeah. Avengers Campus, he calls it Avengers Hallway because it's one road, right? Oh, but that's kind of how I see downtown Disney too. It's just like it's basically downtown hallway because it's just one stretch. But when they bulldozed the AMC and they were able to go further inward, like it wasn't just back and forth. Now you can turn left and actually go further that way too. I think it kind of created a more interesting downtown Disney layout. And I love that whole little new area back there. It looks fantastic. And with the beautiful, like mid-century downtown Disney signage over the, the security checkpoint and all that, it looks fantastic over there. But if they can kind of bring some of that magic over here, bulldoze Tortilla Joe's, they've already bulldozed the fountain, and kind of give it a little more depth with 3 different restaurants or 3 different venues here. That could work, man. That could work. I think what they've done with the AMC situation worked really well. My only issue with the AMC situation is it's a little too much fake grass over there. Have you been over there since they opened that?
So I actually was able to go over there just as they opened it. I didn't have a magic key at the time, but I was in the area, so I went in there and I checked it out. It was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. You know, there was a lot of fake grass.
Yeah.
But I think they do that because we like you mentioned last night when we were talking about the Haunted Mansion remodel from the outside, the queue and whatnot. You know, out here in SoCal, we deal with a massive drought problem.
Yeah.
So the fake grass is their solution to try to fix that problem, alongside getting rid of that fountain. Which, again, I agree with you. The fountain was very unique. It was sad to see it go. It's almost to the point because you got Garden Walk across the way from the Disneyland Resort, and the House of Blues moved over there. So what fitting tribute could it be if they took that fountain and kind of rebuilt it at the House of Blues where it's at currently? That's on that aspect. But going back to the fake grass, I think if Disney is serious about them adding, you know, the Earl sandwich that we keep hearing about, that's going to be on that back port. Then you got Parkside Market. Then you got the retail shops. You got Din Tai Fung. You know, I don't think after a while that fake grass is going to be such a problem.
That's a good point. That's a good point. The more you kind of fill everything in, the more people you have back there, the more people sort of occupying that space, the more businesses you put there. I think the fake grass becomes less of an issue. And it looks actually kind of nice because then you have people actually, families enjoying it, sitting on it, picnicking. Okay, that's a fair point. That's a great point, actually, Conductor. I'm very curious, too, how that Parkside Market's going to look. I think they got like a Korean place, all kinds of stuff that's going to open over there.
You know, it's funny because when I looked at the concept art, I don't know if you've seen it as well. It almost reminds me of what the House of Blues replaced. That bowling alley.
Yeah, the Splitsville.
Yeah, Splitsville. That's kind of what it reminds me of. That modern, kind of high tech looking building. That's what it reminds me of, to be honest.
Yeah. It kind of has that like. It's kind of like that modern. It's kind of like that Jetsons motif. You know, it's kind of like the 1960s version of the future, kind of. You know, that kind of style.
So it actually makes me wonder though. So if they're doing that, then you got Din Tai Fung, which I don't know if it would fit in the Jetsons because it's its own little beast. But it makes me curious with them gonna probably be filing permits very soon to tear down Tortilla Joe's. You know, could we see the old ESPN zone bulldozed and Rainforest Cafe bulldozed?
I think so. I think they're going to get rid of those. And once they get rid of those, then they have a huge amount of space they can work with for more stuff. You know, they're going to have to. And here's the thing. This is the issue that I have with Din Tai Fung. The food is fantastic. I've never eaten at the one at Downtown Disney, but there's another one. I think it was like in West Covina or something. I don't remember exactly where it was. It was like a few years ago. And I went there with my ex-girlfriend and the food is, oh my gosh, fantastic. But, so I have no issue with it being in Downtown Disney. I actually support it. I think it's a great venue. My only issue with it, though, is that the building is so Chinese in its architecture.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're kind of like repeating the same mistake they made with like Rainforest Cafe, where it was like the building was tailor-made for that venue or vendor. Yeah. And so when Rainforest went out of business, I think the whole company went under, if I'm not mistaken. But when they left Disney, now you're left with a building that looks like a temple, and it's like it's harder to put something else in there now, right? So it's like I feel like the same issues happening now with like Din Tai Fung, where it's like, what if Din Tai Fung doesn't work out? What if in 10 or 15 years from now that vendor leaves? But now you have a building so stylized, looking very Chinese, where it's like you kind of create the same issue that you have with Rainforest Cafe. You know what I'm saying? Where I think the other approach, like Splitsville, the bowling alley, the Parkside Market, these are a little bit more like you can put anything in there. You know?
Well, I was going to say they're more like a universal building. Like you could change vendors, and it wouldn't take much to kind of change it a little bit without like doing major demo.
Right, exactly. And that's what I thought the mindset was when they did the Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen remodel. I thought the mindset for that was, okay, we got to make it look a little less New Orleans because if we want to swap out the vendor, it's a little easier to move new people in if it's not so themed to one thing, right? But then they go like right down the way, and they build this very heavily Chinese looking building. I'm like, okay, well that completely destroys my theory about the Jazz Kitchen. So I don't know what's going on, but you also have to understand too, there's also a lot of like third party entities involved in this whole thing. Disney doesn't own Din Tai Fung, obviously, and some of these third parties like Din Tai Fung or Jazz Kitchen or all these other companies that are involved, they might have demands or like things that they require for their brand to be put in that spot. So it's not, I don't think it's 100% necessarily up to Disney, but I want to ask you with Downtown Disney though, in particular, Portos.
Yeah.
Okay. This is an interesting topic because we haven't seen any movement on Portos. The Italiano and I did a video maybe 2 months ago where ABC7, which is actually a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, owned by Disney, ABC7 out here in California. They reported Portos will be here in 18 months. That's what ABC was saying. 18 months. Now, we haven't seen any movement, though. We haven't seen any, where do you stand with that? I mean...
So the movement I've seen, and I don't know if it's significant enough where they're trying to make an attempt. I just saw online on Twitter, what was it, yesterday or a couple days ago, that the Earl of Sandwich temporary location, which is right next to the old Rainforest building and across the way from the old ESPN Zone building, the long trailer, it's now open, which makes me lead to believe that the temporary spot, which took over La Brea Bakery, which has been Earl of Sandwich for a year now, a year and a half, as a temporary spot,
right?
That's getting ready to get closed and be put behind construction walls as well. And you have to understand something, if they're going to demo that whole building, which I think they need to, you're talking about a big construction wall, which that in itself, people coming from downtown Disney, the trams, all that stuff, and even getting on the trams to go to the Mickey and Friends parking structure or the one next to it, Pixar Pals, that's going to be a huge pinch point, a huge pinch point.
Yeah.
You have to think about how big of a footprint they're going to need to get cranes in there and all sorts of stuff to basically start from scratch from the ground up, because we all know how big Portos looks.
Oh, they're massive. We have one out here by me, and the building is massive, and the crowds are massive, and it's crazy. Portos is the demand for Portos. It's like putting it in and out somewhere. You have to have the infrastructure in place for something like that. And that's why, in my opinion, that's my theory, is I think that's where the issues are coming about. That's why it's taking forever, is they're trying to figure out how to design this thing where they can accommodate the amount of demand that it's going to possibly get. Here's the thing too. If it's going in where the La Brea Bakery is, right?
Yeah.
They can push it further into the Esplanade. Because we talked about this with Danny from Five Fires when he was on the show just a few months ago. We talked about what's going to happen to the Esplanade, because a lot of these ticket booths now, they have so many ticket booths, and you don't need all those ticket booths anymore. No. We live in a new age now. We got cell phones and things. We can get tickets online, things like that. We don't need those booths. They don't even really use them that much. They could bulldoze maybe one or two of those and expand downtown Disney further into the Esplanade. And Portos right there, that would be a perfect opportunity to sort of expand it out, because you're going to need that space for that vendor. So I think the reason why it's taking so long, Conductor, is I think there's going to be a lot of reworking with the infrastructure for downtown Disney to put that thing in there. It's not just going to be like, I would be shocked, like seriously shocked. And again, I could be wrong, I mean,
Yeah.
but that's the fun of speculating, because sometimes you are wrong. It's not always, but in my opinion, I would be shocked if they just move Portos into that building. I think they're going to do major work to build upon, add upon that, to accommodate the demand. It's going to be huge.
Well, I personally think to accommodate the fan base that Portos has, first of all, I think they're going to try to make it look like, Splitsville, the Parkside Market, where it's that Jetson type futuristic looking building.
Right.
I think the concept they should probably go to is what Ralph's Brennan Jazz Kitchen looks like, where you have the downstairs seating, but there's also an upstairs with a balcony. I think that would accommodate so many people that love Portos, and you can even add the little, the what's the term I'm looking for? It's get in and get out. Kind of what Ralph's Brennan Jazz Kitchen has to the very far left, where
a little to-go window kind of thing.
Yeah, so like with their beignets, but you can have that with Portos, but make Portos kind of like into a restaurant, but it's a 2-story restaurant. I think that would be, I don't think that would be a problem, because if you think about where La Brea Breakery sat, right behind that, in that the show building for Soarin', so it's not like it's going to create a problem with sightlines.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'd be kind of cool actually if they kind of built it up a little bit around there and kind of covered up that Soarin' building.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a little bit of an eyesore over there. But it's interesting. I think we're going to see some changes, some big changes in downtown Disney. We've been talking about it for many months here on the channel. And actually, kudos to Danny from Five Fires, because he was actually the one that kind of sounded the alarm, so to speak, to me and George about this. We met him up at the parks, and he was talking about the Esplanade and how you don't need these ticket booths. And I never even thought about that. I never even considered that. And when he brought that up, I'm like, Danny, that's absolutely brilliant. We got to get you on the show to talk about it. And we did. But I think at this D23 Expo in 1 week, I think we're going to see I think we're going to hear some. We don't really talk about it too much. We always talk about the Avengers e-ticket or Pandora, the attractions. I think we're going to hear quite a bit about downtown Disney and some of these changes, and maybe even changes, with how they're going to have to adjust everything for Porto's arrival.
It's something just to tie the bow in this. I think we're going to hear a lot of it possibly at D23. Where Josh is talking about Portos being installed. We can see what the retail locations, what they're gonna offer, what Parkside Market, kind of go into more detail with that. And who knows? I know I said with you and George, I know I said Daddy Josh doesn't get to do this blue sky nonsense that we all hate, but if he started with the blue sky about Rainforest Cafe and the ESPN Zone building, I wouldn't be opposed to that, because we're probably still years away from seeing any development, because I think the last time we talked about it, Bricky was talking about putting the World of Arendelle in that parking lot, so those two buildings would be in the way.
The Stitch parking lot, yeah, which is interesting. That's a whole can of worms. And I like the Arendelle stuff, the Frozen stuff. Yeah, I'm a fan of the franchise. I love the first movie. I liked the second movie. I would love to see Arendelle come to Anaheim. I just don't know about having it
in that location.
On the other side of the park, because here's the issue. It feels like a very Fantasyland kind of thing. Yeah. So it feels almost like a little redundant to have Arendelle over here on that side of the park, and then you have Fantasyland over here. I wish if they're going to do Arendelle, somehow try to tie it into Fantasyland. I think that works the best. But to have its own thing on the other end of the park feels weird to me. There's certain princesses that you can do that with, right? Like, for example, if you wanted to build in the expansion pad for Disneyland, if you want to build sort of like a Moana, like Polynesian area, I would be more okay with something like that. That's a little different, I guess. I mean, kind of skirting a little bit on the Adventureland side, but you know, I don't know. I feel like that would be a little less egregious than if you did like the Arendelle. Frozen is just too Fantasyland based, and it feels weird to have it outside of Fantasyland. But we'll see. We'll see. You know, we'll see how they kind of do it. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to hear something at this expo. Friend of the channel, Alia, she actually asked Josh Giamaro. She went on that Adventures by Disney thing a few months ago, and she asked him straight up. She's like, "Hey, Josh, you know, hopefully we don't get a whole bunch of blue sky stuff." And he told her, "Well, we are going to have some blue sky." He admitted to her that, and I appreciate the honesty. Honestly, I mean, I respect that. But he told her we are going to get some blue sky, but we're also going to get a lot of concrete announcements, and that's fine. If you Josh, if you or your people ever come across this video, probably not, but if you do, that's fine. If you give the fans like 2 or 3 big things they're really hyped over, and then you want to sprinkle in some blue sky, hey, we're also thinking about this, I think you're golden. I think the issue with the blue sky stuff the last time is there wasn't enough big concrete announcements. You know, you need those big announcements as your anchor, and then you can sprinkle in the fun blue sky stuff in and around it, but you can't have the blue sky stuff as the main focus of the whole presentation. No. We'll see what happens, but we're hearing that this expo is going to be huge. Like we're hearing that this is going to be an exciting expo. So hopefully they deliver. We'll see, you know? Yeah. We'll see.
But, you know, it's really funny because I'm going to be watching your guys' channel because you guys are going to be streaming it live. And you know, I might have to be eating lasagna or meatballs when I'm sitting there watching it. You know, the kudos to George because he might be shaking in his seat or maybe screaming. I don't know, either one.
Could be. Yeah, we'll see. What George and I will be in that expo, and I'm really looking forward to the expo. It's like I said before, it's kind of like a nerd prom. Like we're gonna see all our friends there. A lot of people from our community are gonna be there. It's gonna be a lot of fun, like meeting up with people that we know online, but we don't necessarily never really met them in person. So I think it'll be a really great time. But sitting there in that parks panel, which will be my first parks panel, by the way. Wow. I've never done a parks panel before, but sitting there at that parks panel and hearing these announcements, whew, it's going to be interesting, bro. We might get super excited or super let down. We'll find out. We'll find out. But I'm optimistic. I think there's going to be quite a bit here this time around that we're going to get energized for. But speaking of getting energized, look at this thing, dude. This is Wizarding World over at Epic Universe, the Ministry of Magic expansion, or not expansion, but Ministry of Magic land at Epic Universe. And it's, from what I understand, Conductor, it's like a hybrid, right? Like the front end of it is Fantastic Beasts, Paris. Yes, and as you move in, you get into the more old school, dare I say, OG Wizarding World. Is that kind of how it works? Am I getting it right?
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. So from the outside walking in, once you go through the little tunnel they have for each land that they're going to have at Epic Universe, you walk into the world of Fantastic Beasts. So you can clearly see it on your screen now, which I'm totally fine with. You know, I'm actually glad that the Universal creative team were able to not only mix in both movie titles in the one land. You know, I think that was absolutely amazing because I think they stunned the world when they built Diagon Alley in Orlando. When they built that and they built the Hogwarts Express, which nobody, I think even it raised an eyebrow to Bob Iger at the time, that they actually built a physical train for a land going from land to land. You can't tell me that's not breathtaking.
Oh, yeah, no, it is. It goes from park to park, right? From what I understand.
Yeah, it goes from Hogsmeade to Diagon Alley, which are in 2 separate parks.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. I absolutely love that. And the giant dragon on top of, what is it, Gringotts? I think that's awesome. I think it's look, here's the thing, too, with the Wizarding World stuff. And I think this is part of the reason why. I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter, right? People saying, well, you know, the Harry Potter stuff isn't getting the same buzz that Dark Universe was getting. Yeah. And I agree, right? I definitely don't see the same buzz. I think the reason why there's a lack of buzz is because I think everyone, including myself, all of us, I think, we're going into this Wizarding World thing at Epic Universe knowing it was going to be an A+ thing. We knew it was going to look amazing, right? They've done this twice now. They've done it twice now. We know what to expect with the Wizarding World stuff with Universal. They do a great job with it. So I think that's why you're kind of not seeing as much of a buzz. Not because it's bad or I think it's mostly just because fans knew it was going to be awesome. So it's like, okay, no shocker here. Dark Universe is like the shiny new object, and so I think it garnered a lot more buzz because it was something that we haven't seen before. This is the third time we're seeing a Wizarding World thing, but aesthetically and everything, it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Alicia Stella, friend of the channel, she was actually saying, and here's the thing, I was wrong in the last video, and it wasn't just me. There's a lot of people in our community that were kind of assuming this, that this land was going to be Fantastic Beasts, like the whole thing. And then Universal saw the movies not doing very well, so they had to scale back and change things. According to Alicia Stella, that's not the case. It's always been the plan to have a half and half land. That's interesting. I found that very, very interesting. So what are your thoughts on that?
So it's interesting that they decided to how can I put it? It's interesting they decided to make the whole outside of the land. And what I mean by the outside, what I mean is like what you can see. And as soon as you walk into the land, we all know that Fantastic Beasts. I'm sure I kind of liked the first one, but after the first one, it kind of died off for me compared to the Harry Potter films. Each Harry Potter film just got more and more interesting as each movie came out compared to Fantastic Beasts. So it's very interesting that Brian Roberts and the Universal creative team decided to make the majority of the land Fantastic Beasts instead of the other way around.
Right.
I think answering your question earlier about people not being so hyped up about Harry Potter and Orlando is the fact that Orlando is like Walt Disney World. They have the land to make it amazing. Now, don't get me wrong here. If they brought this land, they brought this land to Hollywood, because Hollywood and the Disneyland Resort at the moment are landlocked. They have very little space. And if you were to tell me as a fan, hey, you see what Orlando's getting? We are going to build that same footprint in Hollywood, and we're going to make it even more beautiful. I would be culture shocked because, like I said, Hollywood is landlocked. Whatever they build, it's going to last decades before they think about changing it out. So with me and Orlando has the land to build something like this. I rather have heard, oh, it's coming to Hollywood, then I wouldn't have been super excited, because now they're basically trying to fit a giant land into a small footprint, but make it look like it's a big footprint. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but to answer your question, I think the land should have been more Harry Potter based. And don't get me wrong, they could have had Fantastic Beasts in there, but to make Fantastic Beasts the main focal point and have Harry Potter kind of like in the underground, that was kind of weird. But I was going to say the fact that they brought the Ministry of Magic is mind blowing. Just the pictures you can obviously see on your screen are just breathtaking.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. It says here, this is from Alicia Stella. Shout out to Alicia. She does phenomenal work. And this is the thing too, right? I've said it many times and I don't shy away from it. I have a Disney bias. I prefer Disney. That's where my heart is really at. But I always liked Universal. And I have an annual pass at Universal. I love going to the parks, right? But here's the thing. The thing I love about Alicia is that she is so passionate about Universal. It's fantastic. I love to see passion in people. When people are passionate about something, it's amazing. But she says here, setting the record straight, this land was designed to feature both the British Ministry and French Ministry since at least 2018. Before the second Fantastic Beasts film was released, British Ministry was not a last-minute change due to box office reception, but maybe cutting the second ride was. That's interesting. So maybe the ride situation was, but the land was always going to be this way. That's fascinating, right?
Yeah. It is fascinating. To me, how can I put it? To me, to sit there and cut a second ride that could be a people eater. I don't know if that was such a brilliant idea, whether it was based off Fantastic Beasts or not. It's always a good thing to build a land that has multiple attractions, multiple experiences, multiple shops and restaurants to kind of give the consumer, different options to explore instead of one option. That's the biggest problem we have out here in Hollywood right now with Super Nintendo World. All the other Super Nintendo Worlds have 3 attractions. We have the least amount of mini games compared to Orlando, compared to Osaka, Japan. So,
right. No, you're right. You're right, conductor, and that's where I think they dropped the ball when it comes to Super Nintendo World. I think they could have done with a lot less. Like personally, I would have if you had to make a decision. Like if you're Universal and you have a budget and you have to make a decision, right? If I'm the executive making this call, I'm putting Yoshi in there, and I'm scrapping the games, the Power Band games. I'm putting the second attraction in there, because I think that's the evergreen thing. Like I think that a lot of like the Power Band interactive stuff, and not just with Universal, but even the stuff that Disney does when it comes to that kind of thing, it's very gimmicky, and it's something that it kind of fades away. But the attractions are something that will always bring people in, right? I think they would have been better served with that Nintendo World to do Mario Kart, which I thought was a great ride, and add the Yoshi thing. And especially for Universal, Yoshi's a everybody ride. I talk about that a lot with Universal. They lack a lot of those kind of everyone rides. That would be perfect for that, and it sits in the same footprint of the land. It just goes around the land. I can't imagine they couldn't fit it. It's not like it has like a giant show building or something crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I would have done Yoshi. I agree with you. But any word on any of that? Like in terms of like expansions that you've heard from like Wizard or anything like that? I mean,
so Wizard's holding tight onto the fact that we're not getting DK. But I did do some research today. I was looking at it. I was Googling online, and one of the statements I read was that Brian Roberts and the Universal team, they actually, how can I put it? They actually purposely made Super Nintendo World smaller. That was their plan all along. Like you said, with the new Harry Potter land in Orlando and Epic Universe, they already had their mindset and goal into making that land small. The reason behind that is to bring other experiences, other lands. So one thing I did read, though, they are still planning on bringing another Nintendo property. They are still, the Yoshi attraction is not as dead as everyone wants to believe it is. It might not be, in the land itself, which is going to be a little awkward, but there was a rumor going around that it could be kind of like a dark ride.
Oh, that's dope, dude. I love that. I hope they do that. That's awesome. A Yoshi dark ride would be really cute. And you can do it in the same kind of vein of like how the Winnie the Pooh ride at Disneyland is or whatever, yes, where it's like really cute for kids, very like just everyone can kind of enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? That would be fantastic. I would love something like that. So we'll see. I also wanted to pick your brain on this. This is interesting, dude. You've seen this, right? The dragon?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
The dragon. They have a freaking dragon. Look, man, well done, Universal. Like this thing, it looks dope. From what I understand, people like zoomed in on it. I know it's really small. I'm sorry, everybody. I can't really expand it, but it's toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. And this thing is flying. And Wizard was saying this thing is going to be performing like multiple times during the day.
What?
I mean, this is pretty awesome, man. I mean, hopefully that's true. Hopefully that, it's something that's a mainstay and not just like an opening day thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, dude. This is incredible. What say you, sir?
Dude, so I've seen the video, but the fact that they want to actually make this thing, there's a possibility they want to make this thing fly over the land multiple times a day. You've got to be kidding me, bro. That is that is so mind blowing, and just like you want to just scratch your head and like, how in the hell are they going to do something like this? Hey, like you said, kudos to Universal for even attempting to try to do something like this, because we all know Florida weather sucks. Whether it's
dude.
or there's hurricanes or tornadoes or any of that bullshit, but most of the time when it's just hot and there's no wind and that bullshit, and they can have this thing flying around just like we saw with the windmill on fire and shit in Dark Universe. Oh heck yeah, bro.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Disney had this technology like back in 2012 when they opened New Fantasyland over there in Florida, and they had a dragon flying over the land for I think it was just for the media event, So Imagineering went through all this trouble to design this dope dragon. It looked very similar to this. Then they never use it again, and I'm like, why? And that frustrates me with Imagineering. You see a lot of these cool kind of these experimental projects. Back in the day, you might be too young, I'm not really sure. But back in the day for DCA in 2002 ish, Imagineering created Lucky the dinosaur, and it was this. Remember that?
Yes.
Right, and it was kind of like this free roaming dinosaur with a kind of like a basket on his back or something, right?
Yeah.
And the thing came out, and I think it was only in DCA. The thing came out maybe 3 or 4 times, and we never saw the thing again. I'm like, come on, that's the kind of stuff that's really cool. It's it has a lot of kinetic energy to the area, to the space.
Yeah.
But Imagineering, they do these things and then they just forget about them. They just they're never to be seen again.
Well,
which is kind of upsetting.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I know I'm pretty sure you and George did a video, and this was a while back. I'm pretty sure of it. But one thing you guys talked about was, I think it was when they were doing the Imagineering on YouTube, where you can watch the episodes, how they create so much amazing stuff, but then they get to debut it, so they kind of feel like their work didn't go to waste. But then it's not like a permanent installation or like a semi-permanent thing, and that has a lot to do with upper management. It could be the CEO, it could be the board members, it could be anyone in that realm that's saying, no, we can't do this anymore. So I want to give kudos to the Imagineering on both the Universal side and the Disney side for coming up with these ideas. Because like you said, they are highly experimental, but they're things we haven't seen before, or like we're watching right now, where we've all watched the Harry Potter movies. We all saw the Ministry of Magic on the big screen, and the fact that we can actually walk through it, it's like, who in the hell thought that was possible?
Yeah, well, and they were saying, I think it was in this video actually, they were saying this Paris street is to scale.
Yeah.
So it's to scale. This is actually the same height you would see in Paris. You know what I'm saying? That's wild to me. That's crazy. So we'll see, man. It looks aesthetically, it's gorgeous. My only critique, George and I did a video on it. We talked about it. My main critique with this whole thing, and it's more of a personal thing.
Sure.
The attraction seems like another kind of like a little bit thrilling, like a little bit of a Tower of Terror kind of thing. Yeah. Now, people in the comments were telling me it's actually a little bit like Soarin' over California, which is surprising to me because Soarin' is very tranquil.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to see it and see if I'll go on it. If it's crazy drops and all that, I probably will try it once and that's it. But it looks like a little bit of an intense ride for me personally. But we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I've heard mixed things about it. What have you heard about the attraction?
So I've heard exactly what you've actually heard about it being kind of like a Soarin' type ride, even like a oh god, like a ride that we have at Hogsmeade right now inside the castle.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
Forbidden Journey.
Forbidden Journey, yeah. So it's kind of like in that realm to a point, but I think it's a little scaled back from that because Forbidden Journey, it kind of thrashes you all over the place. I don't think this is like that because
Good.
they're kind of trying to base it off like, you know, if you were in a kind of like a Willy Wonka type elevator where it goes up and down or side to side. It's not like where it spins you upside down and all that.
Gotcha.
So,
And then the drops aren't like tower, like Mission Breakout, right? Where like,
I don't think so.
that's dope, dude. Because here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. I love these worlds. Like, I'm not a huge Harry Potter head. Like, I saw the movies like a decade ago. I haven't seen them since, right? But I like the franchise, though. It's a cool franchise, absolutely. I really want to be able to experience some of these Potter attractions. The Forbidden Journey one, for me personally, I'm claustrophobic. Those ride vehicles are just too much for me. They squeeze you in those little cubby holes, and then they put you upside down, on your back, and you fall even deeper into them. I just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? This ride doesn't look like it has that claustrophobia element to it, which I love. If it's not crazy, that's awesome, dude, because I want to be able to go on a Harry Potter ride and just enjoy it. You know, I don't want to have all these like elements in there that are like, you know, so if it's like kind of a chill thing, a little bit chill, I don't need it like super like mellow, but if it's not like dropping you like Mission Breakout every 5 minutes, then I'll probably be okay with it. So we'll see, dude.
You know, it's something very interesting. I'm kind of wondering if that second attraction that they were planning on even before they built Epic Universe, but it was meant for this land. I wonder if that was going to be more of a dark ride.
Oh, that is interesting. Yeah, I don't know. See, this is why I kind of thought it was a Tower of Terror. The way
those things move.
Right, like this part right here. Let me show you real quick.
Yeah.
The way it moves. Right, hold on. Here we go. Like this is that was so Tower of Terror right there. You know what I'm saying? We'll see. We'll see how it is. It might not be. It might not be that crazy. And I love this too, right here. Let me show you real quick, brother.
Yeah.
There's a part right here that George and I were talking about where you go into these things and I guess they transport you with the green flames and stuff. Like this Metro flu, dude. That's pretty awesome, man. I like that a lot.
So, okay. So I'm going to give my opinion since you and George gave your opinions about this.
Yeah.
What I think they're going to do, and don't get me wrong, but I think what they're going to do, they're going to have a light element, which is going to be green. So they're going to have a green light and a puff of smoke. You walk through it, and the brick wall that you see in the background, that's going to open up to the Ministry of Magic. I think that's how they're going to do it. What do you think?
Yeah, probably the case. Maybe even a little projection mapping in there or something for the flame effect. Who knows, you know? But that's pretty dope, dude. I like this part of it. I love this part, actually. This is awesome. Oh, but yeah, we'll see. But aesthetically, it's going to be an A+, dude. I mean, you know, the Potter stuff is always a home run for Universal, and they work really well with J.K. Rowling and getting this stuff to look exactly like the movie. So it's going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah,
but we'll see, bro.
And it's really interesting because when they were building Diagon Alley out there, one of the biggest problems they had was trying to make the land look like Diagon Alley, where it's all kind of old and aesthetic. It's kind of, the buildings are kind of crooked and wavy and whatnot. But some of the Imagineers, they were talking about in the video, they were saying, well, the biggest problem due to Florida weather and Florida code was trying to make the buildings modern art, like trying to make them like, how can I put it? Like
stylized or whatever?
Well, not like stylized, but structurally sound. So almost building like a brand new building that looks like brand new, but making it old on the outside, but making it new on the inside where it can withstand tornadoes and shit like that Florida goes through.
Yeah, the hurricanes. Yeah, that's interesting, dude. That's interesting. Yeah, that's the thing. You got to create this stuff to make it look really cool, but then logistically, and structurally, it has to work too. It's a challenge, man. This stuff is not easy to do, and especially out there in Florida, they have a lot of weather. out there in Florida. We don't have that out here. Now we have earthquakes, but even with earthquakes, man, it's like we get like a big quake, like a dangerous quake, like every 20 plus years. It's not a regular occurrence. The hurricane stuff is almost every season for them. You know?
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. And one thing I wanted to ask you, because I know we talked about it with George about Dark Universe.
Right.
So apparently, Epic Universe, for every single land has some type of expansion slot behind it. Okay. Supposedly. Do you think once Epic Universe opens and then down the road they think about expanding these lands, could we see that second attraction come back online?
For the Potter?
Yeah.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah, absolutely. It's possible. Yeah, I don't see why not. But see, here's the thing. Alicia didn't say what that attraction was. Was it based on Fantastic Beasts? Do we know?
Well, it almost sounds like it is, because from what she said, it's going to offer both the British and French ministry. So the French is basically Fantastic Beasts.
Right.
So it would have to be based off something like that. So I would assume so.
That's a tough one, Conductor, because that franchise didn't do well. From what I understand, like WB, like Warner Brothers, kind of gave up on it. Like they were supposed to do I think 8 movies or something like that, or 7 movies, and now they've just cut it. Like they're not doing them. That's tough. That's tough, I don't know if they will or not. But here's the other thing too with Warner Brothers is that they are rebooting Harry Potter in general with a TV series, with a streaming service, a streaming series of Harry Potter. Right? They're rebooting it, like the original stories. Right? It's possible that Warner Brothers also revisits the Fantastic Beasts franchise, and that can revitalize it. And maybe they'll look at that second attraction as Fantastic Beasts if that gains more traction like the second go around. So we'll see. I think the only thing holding back that second ride, that second attraction as Fantastic Beasts, if it was Fantastic Beasts themed, is the franchise just didn't really resonate. So I think Epic Universe will be a success. The park will be a success. The land will be a success. That's not the issue, but that franchise really struggled, so that's the only thing holding it back, Yeah.
See, the other problem I see too is when Epic Universe opens, I think Harry Potter is going to be the only land that's going to have one attraction in it compared to all the other lands. Right. So that's the first problem. The other, it's not really a problem, but the other thing WB is looking at, they have been in talks with the original cast, and a lot of the original cast has passed on, like Robbie Coltrane that played Hagrid. You got I forgot the actor's name that played Dumbledore. He passed on, and
Snape, I believe his name was.
Alan Rickman passed away. I think even Lucius Malfoy, his wife, the mom. She passed away. So there's multiple characters that are important to the franchise that have passed on. But the way the last Harry Potter movie ended, supposedly Warner Brothers is trying to get in touch with the actors that are still, doing other projects and whatnot, trying to get them all back together for another movie, maybe a couple movies, so we can actually see off of the TV series that's supposed to be debuting, I think, on HBO pretty soon. We could see another Potter movie when they're all grown up and they have their kids, and now they're all working at the ministry and their kids are going to Hogwarts. So that can open a whole another can of worms.
Yeah, and I think if they go that route and they do that, that's maybe not for Epic Universe, because I don't know how that works timeline wise and stuff. I'm not like a big Potter person, but like I think there's a chance that like if the sequel films where Harry and Hermione, they're older now and stuff, if that really takes off, you could see another land at Universal somewhere based on the older Harry. It wouldn't surprise me. And whatever kids they have, the new generation, Harry, part of the new generation, so That'll be interesting.
So one thing I want to bring up to you, and I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up.
Sure.
Out of all these lands that we're seeing at Epic Universe, if you were going to carbon copy one and bring it to Hollywood, which one would you do? And would you change it a little bit to make it feel like a Hollywood exclusive compared to Orlando?
Yeah, the land I would put in Hollywood would be Dark Universe. And the reason why I say Dark Universe is Universal Hollywood is steeped in its history with the studio, you know. And for the studio, the Universal monsters are like that's kind of what started it all for Universal, kind of, right? The Universal monsters are kind of like the princess in the fairy tale for Disney, you know. It's a very big part of Universal's history as a studio. And the studio is a big part of the Universal Studios Hollywood. So I would like the monsters, Dark Universe, to come here to California. I mean, you can, wherever you want to put it, bring the Frankenstein ride, right? The big e-ticket, you bring that. Maybe leave out like the roller coaster because we're getting Fast and Furious, and maybe give us like maybe like another dark ride or a smaller dark ride along with Frankenstein, something to that effect. But the monsters, I think, are the way to go because that is so. It really does pay homage to the studio in a beautiful way.
Yeah, and
I just think that would be awesome. I would love it. I would love it. What say you? What land would you bring over if you could?
So the two, I'm going to choose two lands.
Go for it.
Choose two. So obviously the first one's going to be Dark Universe without a doubt. And from what I've heard, rumor-wise, just like Diagon Alley was supposed to, Diagon Alley, when it was built in Orlando, it was actually meant for Hollywood. So Hollywood was actually meant to get that land even before Orlando was even talking about it. Something fell through where it didn't happen. Same thing with Universal Monsters, because how can I put it? The way I see it is they've been talking about Epic Universe since, I want to say, God, maybe 2015, 2014, and they've been planning it out for a while. So it's been a 10-year ordeal or more. But Universal Monsters, the whole Dark Universe was supposed to be meant for Hollywood because it would make more sense to put it in Hollywood than it would Orlando. Because, like you said, Universal Monsters is what revived Universal in general. They brought the studio back to life because at the time, a lot of these movie studios, they were dealing with the, how can I put it? They were dealing with financial crisis all over the place. I think even the Great Depression or something along those lines was going around at that time, and people just didn't have, extra income to sit there and go enjoy entertainment. They barely had money to put food on the table. They barely had money to go see a movie in whatever movie theater they had back in the day, as cheap as it was, but maybe not cheap to them as the consumer. So bringing the Universal Monsters and Dark Universe, I personally think Brian Roberts should have came out and said, hey, you know what? Epic Universe is obviously getting this, but Hollywood's going to get this. And we're going to make our Hollywood version a lot more unique because that's where it all started for us and the monster.
Yeah, well said. That's exactly it. That's the move. That's the move you do. And get rid of that god-awful Simpsons land.
Oh yeah. Goodbye. But to your point on that, I think Universal Monsters, it needs a bigger footprint than that. I'm not saying it shouldn't be brought to Hollywood.
Yeah.
It should be put in a bigger spot.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. You would have to get a bigger spot for that because, like you said, you have to do it right. You got to pay that franchise the proper respect and give it the amount of room it needs to really show off and be amazing.
Yeah.
That little as Bricky calls it, a hallway. That's not going to be enough for monsters.
Oh God, no. And I wanted to ask you too, since we're talking about Downtown Disney. And the fact that you had Danny on the show talking about the Esplanade, how much it's going to change, how much they're in talks with about ripping out the old ticket booths and all that stuff from the early 2000s, late 90s, late 80s. Do you think, because you've been to Hollywood with Wizard and Webba and whatnot, and you kind of see the same problem that Hollywood has. You have all these ticket booths, and I rarely ever see one ever being used, because everyone has a smartphone nowadays, and they just buy their tickets online, or they buy them at home and print them on their little printer and then bring the ticket with them. Do you think, with the Universal Hotel being rumored to be placed right in front of the park, we could see those ticket booths removed?
Definitely. We live in a new world now. A lot of stuff is done online and through apps and things like that. These ticket booths are becoming kind of a relic of the past in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I can see that. I think we're going to see a lot of reworking for that entryway for Universal when that hotel comes up. When that hotel comes out, they're gonna move things around. And they should. They should. I think it's a smart move,
Yeah. Well, that and I've always felt that, compared to Disneyland, where they have security at the parking structures, I think that's one of the smartest things that Disney did. And I would like Universal to follow that footprint. I know when I think it was my very first episode I was on with you guys, because I've probably done, I don't know, 30 episodes with you guys, maybe even more. But my very first episode with you and George, I brought up the fact that, Universal is going to be bringing the on-site hotel courtesy of Wizard, finding out all these facts about permits. They were going to rework the whole plaza area there. They were going to move security to the parking structures. They were going to enclose City Walk, where it becomes more of a fun experience, but a safe experience, where people don't have to worry about someone bringing in, God forbid, a gun or a knife or some type of a weapon or something like that. Because a lot of buildings and a lot of spaces in City Walk, they are vacant, because Universal, their City Walk used to be very vibrant. They used to have a nightclub. They used to have stuff like that, and they got rid of that because of security problems.
I used to go there, actually. Like when in my early 20s.
Okay.
Many moons ago, there was a place at City Walk I called Saddle Ranch, I think the name was, and they had Saddle Ranch, and they had the mechanical bull, and it was a club. It was a club, and they would play music, and you serve drinks and the whole thing. I'd be there all the time. But you're right, it would create a lot of nighttime problems because people drink, and it gets kind of rowdy, and people get, now they got rid of all that stuff. They don't have Saddle Ranch anymore. And I thought there was another club too, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no. There was another nightclub. I just can't think of the name of it, but it's of NBC Sports Grill. It's in that location upstairs. But a lot of people have said if Universal decides to go in that route where they enclose City Walk, where you have to go through security at the parking structures, and they can put a stop to any illegal anything, weapons, substances, whatever it might be, and put an end to it there. They actually said that a lot of opportunities might open up for City Walk to bring back the nightlife, because that's what's kind of gone out of the City Walk. Because a lot of what you can do in City Walk is just basically restaurants and shopping. There's really like nightclub. There's really no like Orlando City Walk. They have escape rooms. They have the Red Coconut Club. Stuff like that. I think if Hollywood's version of City Walk went that security measure, we could see that be revitalized for our version of City Walk.
I hope so. That nightlife would be fun to have back if they can do it safely. If they can do it where people don't get too crazy or whatever, kind of create more of a bubble.
Yeah.
That would be cool because it was fun back in the day, you know, in my younger years. It was cool to go down there and dance, you know, and have a few drinks and mingle and meet people. It was fun, dude. It was a lot of fun. I was down there all the time. But now you don't have any of that.
No.
None of that. It's all gone, you know, so it's crazy. It's crazy. Conductor, it is always a pleasure. By the way, I want to ask you, did you ever now you're still pretty young. I mean, did you ever go clubbing when you were?
So actually, it's really funny you mentioned that because I actually went to that Saddleback restaurant multiple times.
Nice.
You know, granted, it was for family outings, but we still went. And I saw my fair share of wild shit. I'm not gonna lie about that. I saw, you know, my hot women on that bull riding around. I'm not gonna lie about that one.
Hey, you know what, Conductor? We got to get you on a members exclusive video. We'll talk about those experiences. We'll talk about those experiences. But always a pleasure, brother, having you on. If you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on Twitter at Theme Conductor. You can also find me on Conductor Thursdays. Every Thursday at 7 p.m. we have some amazing guests, including OG 55 and George the Italiano. We had Mr. Webba. This week we are having Universal High, which is an absolute treat because he's our version of Hey Bricky for Universal. Right. So this guy is knowledgeable about everything Universal. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a very exciting video.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of this video, I'll be linking one of Theme Park Conductor's Conductor Thursday videos. So everyone home, you can check it out after this video. At the very end, check it out. He does a great show. And maybe I'll link the one that when you had George and I on.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay, that was a fun one. I'll link that one at the end. Make sure you check it out. Subscribe to him if you haven't already, and check out every single Thursday night, Conductor Thursday. Conductor, thank you for joining us, and thank you all so much for watching. We are 1 week away from the D23 Expo. Nerd Prom is arriving. It's going to be crazy. Will Daddy Josh deliver? That's the big question. We'll see. But comment down below with all your questions or comments down below. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of OG Biddy.
Like Ice-T, I'm OG. Like Ice-T, I'm OG. Ice-T, I'm OG. I'm demon like IT. Got more juice than High C.